Silent destroyer. Some offices don't just fail to support a business. They actively destroy it. And the most dangerous part is that the destruction is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up in a quarterly report. It doesn't trigger an alarm. It accumulates quietly, day after day, until the damage becomes undeniable. By then, most leaders have already spent months or years compensating for something they never identified. This is not about a messy desk or poor lighting. This is about structural flaws in the environment that silently sabotage authority, clarity, decision-making, and cash flow. And here's what makes this so frustrating for leaders. The office often looks fine. It might even look impressive. Modern furniture, clean design, professional aesthetics, everything in place. But underneath that surface, the space is working against the business. And leaders feel it, even if they can't name it. They feel the constant drain. They feel decisions becoming heavier. They feel authority weakening without understanding why. They feel the business requiring more effort for less result. And because the environment looks acceptable, they blame themselves. They assume the problem is strategy or execution or mindset or the team. So they push harder. They work longer hours. They tighten control. They add more meetings, more systems, more pressure. But none of that fixes a structural problem. Pushing harder in a destructive environment only accelerates the damage. It's like trying to run faster on a treadmill that's subtly tilted backward. You can increase effort indefinitely, but you'll never gain real momentum. The tilt is the problem. And in business, that tilt is often environmental. Now, before we go further, let me be clear about something important. This is not mysticism. This is not about crystals, rituals, or spiritual beliefs. This is about recognizing that your workspace has structure. And structure creates patterns. Patterns influence behavior. Behavior shapes decisions. Decisions determine outcomes. That chain exists whether you acknowledge it or not. Ignoring the environment doesn't make you rational. It makes you exposed. So if your business feels like it's working hard but not consolidating, if revenue comes in but stability never arrives, if you're constantly firefighting without ever building momentum, your office might be the silent destroyer. And this video will show you exactly what that looks like. The invisible pattern of destruction. Destruction in a workspace doesn't look like collapse. It looks like friction. Constant, low-level friction that becomes so normal you stop noticing it. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Because when something becomes normal, you stop questioning it. You accept it as part of doing business. But here's the truth. Friction is expensive. And when friction becomes your baseline, it silently drains everything. Money, energy, authority, momentum. Let's talk about what this pattern actually looks like in practice. You walk into your office and immediately feel a subtle heaviness. Not dramatic, just a low-grade resistance. You sit down to work, but focus takes longer to arrive than it should. Decisions that should be simple require more mental effort. Conversations with your team feel slightly more complicated than necessary. Follow-ups multiply. Clarity feels just out of reach. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted in a way that doesn't match the actual workload. You didn't have a crisis. You didn't face a disaster. You just moved through constant friction. And that friction compounds. Here's another sign. Your team's energy doesn't match their capability. You have talented people, but they seem slower than they should be. They hesitate more. They ask more questions. They need more reassurance. They seem less confident in their decisions. And you might think that's a people problem. But often, it's an environment problem. Because people absorb the energy of the space they work in. If the space feels unstable, they become unstable. If the space creates confusion, they hesitate. If the space undermines authority, they lose confidence in leadership. And when that happens, execution slows down. Mistakes increase. Miscommunication becomes frequent. Rework becomes normal. Deadlines slip. Momentum dies. Let's talk about decisions. In a destructive office, decisions feel heavier than they should. You make a decision, but then you second-guess it. You implement something, but then you reverse it. You commit to a direction, but then you change your mind. And this isn't because you're indecisive. It's because the environment is not supporting decision stability. There's no anchor, no solid ground. So decisions feel like they're floating. And floating decisions create chaos in execution. Your team doesn't know what's final. Clients sense uncertainty. Partners hesitate. And the business loses momentum. Not because the strategy is wrong, but because the environment is structurally unstable. And instability always becomes financial. The 3 fatal flaws. There are 3 structural flaws that destroy businesses more than any others. And the frustrating part is that leaders almost never see them. Because these flaws hide behind professional aesthetics. They look harmless. Sometimes they even look strategic. But functionally, they're lethal. Let's start with the first fatal flaw. Authority undermined by position. This happens when the leader's physical position in the office weakens their command presence. And yes, position matters. Not symbolically, functionally. When a leader sits in a position that feels exposed, unstable, or constantly interrupted, their nervous system compensates. They become hypervigilant. They overmonitor. They micromanage. They struggle to delegate. And they don't realize the environment is forcing them into that mode. Common examples. A desk facing a wall, a position with no backing, a seat where people approach from behind or from multiple directions without warning, or a workspace in a high-traffic zone where interruptions are constant. All of these positions drain authority. And when authority is drained, leadership becomes exhausting. The second fatal flaw, fragmented focus caused by chaotic flow. This happens when the office layout creates constant visual or mental interruptions. Open sight lines to distractions. Motion in the peripheral vision. Mixed work zones where tasks bleed into each other. No clear separation between deep work and reactive work. And when flow is chaotic, focus fragments. Leaders spend energy trying to concentrate instead of actually concentrating. Tasks take longer. Decisions require more effort. Clarity becomes elusive. And the business pays for that every single day. The third fatal flaw, conflicting energy zones that create instability. This is the most misunderstood one. It happens when different areas of the office send contradictory signals. For example, a decision-making zone that feels unstable. A strategic planning area placed in a chaotic part of the building. A leadership space that shares energy with high-stress operational zones. Or worst of all, a beautifully designed office that prioritizes aesthetics over functional alignment. Because beauty without structure is just expensive confusion. And confusion kills momentum. These 3 flaws, weakened authority, fragmented focus, and conflicting energy, work together. When all 3 exist in the same office, the business doesn't just slow down. It starts breaking down. Revenue stagnates. Team morale drops. Leaders burn out. Clients sense instability. And the business enters a slow, invisible decline. Not because the product failed. Not because the market shifted. But because the environment destroyed the foundation. Real stories of silent destruction. Let me share 3 real examples of how offices silently destroyed businesses. Names changed, details adjusted, but the patterns are real. First story, a tech startup founder I'll call Marcus. His company was growing. Revenue was increasing. The team was talented. Investors were interested. But Marcus felt like he was losing control. Decisions that should take minutes were taking days. His team seemed confused constantly. Meetings multiplied, but nothing got clearer. He assumed it was a leadership problem, so he brought in consultants, implemented new systems, hired a COO. Nothing changed. Then we examined the office. His desk was positioned in the center of an open floor plan, surrounded by movement on all sides. He had no stable backing. His sightline included the entrance, the kitchen, the meeting rooms, and multiple workstations. His brain was processing interruptions every few seconds, all day, every day. We moved him to a position with structural support, controlled sightlines, and clear separation from operational chaos. Within 2 weeks, he said this, "I'm deciding faster. My team feels more confident. Meetings are shorter. I didn't realize I was fighting the room every single day." Second story, A consultancy partner I'll call Elena. High-ticket services, strong reputation, consistent clients. But cash flow was unpredictable. Money came in, but it never felt stable. She worked harder, tightened processes, hired financial help. Still unstable. We looked at her office layout. Beautiful space. But the financial zone, where she reviewed contracts, made pricing decisions, and managed cash flow, was positioned in a visually chaotic area near the entrance. High traffic, constant movement, no energetic grounding. Functionally, her money decisions were being made in instability. We restructured the space. We created a dedicated financial command zone, separated from traffic, visually clean, structurally stable. 2 months later, cash flow stabilized. Not because she worked harder, because decisions were no longer being made in chaos. Third story. A CEO I'll call Jonathan. His company had been profitable for years. Then suddenly, everything felt heavy. The team seemed demotivated. Execution slowed. Clients started questioning things they never questioned before. He thought it was market shift or internal culture issues. But the decline started exactly when they moved to a new office. A bigger, more expensive, beautifully designed office. That looked impressive, but was structurally destructive. The leadership team sat in isolated pods. Authority was fragmented. The energy flow was scattered across 3 floors. No central command presence. The space looked like success, but functioned like sabotage. We didn't redesign everything. We repositioned key players and clarified energy zones. Within a month, momentum returned. Recognition and correction. So how do you know if your office is quietly destroying your business? Here are the diagnostic signals. First, ask yourself this. When you enter your workspace, does your energy rise or drop? If you consistently feel heavier when you walk in, that's a signal. Second, do decisions feel harder than they should? Not complex decisions, simple ones. If routine choices require excessive mental effort, the environment is adding friction. Third, does your team seem capable but underperforming? If talented people are producing weaker results without a clear operational reason, the space might be undermining them. Fourth, is your cash flow unpredictable despite consistent revenue? If money comes in but never consolidates, the environment may be creating financial instability. Fifth, do you feel constantly tired in a way that doesn't match your workload? If you're exhausted, but the day wasn't objectively overwhelming, you're likely fighting environmental resistance. And here's the most telling signal. If you've optimized strategy, systems, team, and execution, but something still feels wrong, the problem is structural. Now, let's talk about correction. You don't need a complete redesign. You need strategic adjustments. Start with your position. Stabilize where you sit. Ensure you have solid backing, controlled sightlines, and protection from constant interruption. Next, simplify your field of vision. Remove visual noise. Clear clutter. Create clean zones for different types of work. Separate decision-making areas from operational chaos. Then, examine your team's positioning. Are key players sitting in positions that support their role? Is your financial person in a stable zone? Is your strategist in a space that supports clarity? Is your operations lead positioned to see flow? Finally, assess energy alignment. Does the space support what you're trying to build? Or is it sending conflicting signals? Beautiful but chaotic? Impressive but unstable? Modern but draining? Because aesthetics without alignment is just expensive confusion. Here's the truth leaders need to hear. Your office is either supporting your business or quietly destroying it. There is no neutral. And ignoring this doesn't make you focused. It makes you vulnerable. So if your business feels harder than it should, if momentum is elusive, if success feels unstable, start by examining the space where leadership happens. Because leadership is not only strategy. Leadership is environment. And environment shapes everything. If this perspective resonates with you, subscribe to Feng Shui for Leaders. Here we explore how space shapes leadership, clarity, and results. Because your space decides before you do.